The next few sessions are with a client named Mary, who was raised by two alcoholic parents. Her main overall core issue is something like feeling unworthy, feeling not good enough. And once we took a quick look at her personal peace procedure list, it was really easy to see how those events could be supporting, her tabletop. There were more than 60 events on her list, all of them with really high intensity and also with related themes. And, for example, both of her parents were often drunk or hungover and somewhat less than pleasant. So for every event where one of them was yelling or criticizing her, there was also another 20 events where pretty much the same thing was also happening. And that makes it difficult for us to release the intensity completely on an aspect like he was yelling at me, because once we peel back that layer, the intensity from all the other events with that similar aspect comes in to fill that gap. So you'll notice that when we, can identify an aspect that has, some kind of a theme related to it, that I'm comfortable leaving the intensity at around a 1, knowing that once we address some more of those events, the generalization effect is going to come into play and keep those other events from affecting it quite so much. Because this is a more advanced case, the earlier sessions that I did with Mary are demonstrating different kind of tools than the later sessions. So for the sake of clear instruction, we're not showing those chronologically. In the following session with Mary, we demonstrate tell the story technique on one of the events from her personal peace procedure list. You'll see some reference to her theme, which is the word that we've come up with to describe her tabletop or her related events, as well as some tips for handling a client in that situation. Now, there's two things that you'll notice about my setup and reminder language in this session. The first is that I use now more than a few words to describe the disruption or the aspect that we're trying to target. I've actually expanded that quite a bit. The other thing you'll notice is that I don't use the same reminder phrase on each of the remaining points. As we move forward, you'll see more and more variation with the language. So if you've become really comfortable with the standard language to this point, you might feel comfortable branching out a little bit and doing something similar to what I'm doing here. All right, so we're back to work with another event from your personal peace procedure list.
Okay.
And you've picked one?
Yes.
Okay. How long is the event?
Not even, like a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many crescendos are we expecting?
4.
You think 4?
Yes.
Okay. And if the movie had a title, if it were a movie and it had a title, what would the title be?
Money yelling.
Money yelling.
Yes.
Okay. All right, money yelling. And when you think about sort of revisiting the story of money yelling, how intense are you from 0 to 10?
I'm about a 5.
You're about a 5?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to do tell the story.
Okay.
You're going to start at a neutral point, and then
Okay.
you're going to tell the story out loud to me.
Okay.
When just chronologically, frame by frame, when you get to a point where you feel intensity
Okay.
in your body or emotionally or anything, you're going to stop and let me know, and then
Okay.
we'll tap through it.
Okay.
And that's the way that we minimize your emotional pain through the process.
Okay.
And so
Great.
if I notice anything that looks to me like emotional intensity, I'll stop you
Okay.
as well,
Mhm.
so that we can check in and see what's happening.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so find your neutral spot before anything bad was happening and tell the story.
Okay. I was little, like quite little, like not even quite 10, right around there, or a little younger. And I was standing in the living room. My dad was standing up in the living room.
Okay, do you have intensity talking about your dad standing up? I'm just checking.
A little bit. Yeah.
0 to 10, what would that be?
1.5.
A 1.5?
Yeah.
Okay, is that something, does that get worse? Is that like in anticipation of something that's coming?
Well, how do I word this? I could tell that he was going to start yelling even then. Like I knew.
Did he have a look on his face?
In the moment, yes. I knew in the moment.
Okay, so the 1.5 is about the look on his face.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And do you have like an emotion about that? Was it Fear?
Fear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to tap on ourselves.
Okay.
You're already familiar with the points.
Yes.
Right? It was a look on his face.
Yes.
And how 1.5?
Yeah.
Okay. Even though he had a look on his face.
Even though he had a look on his face.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay. He had a look on his face.
He had a look on his face.
I saw that look on his face.
I saw that look on his face.
There was a 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 look on his face.
He was standing there and he had a look on his face.
He was standing there and he had a look on his face.
He had a look on his face.
He had a look on his face.
That look scared me.
That look scared me.
That look scared me.
That look scared me.
Okay. So go back to that part. Imagine him standing there with that look.
It's lower. Yeah.
Below a 1?
Yes.
Below a 1?
Yes.
Can we call that a 0?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, let's call it 0.
Okay. So let's keep going then.
Okay. And I don't remember what I asked him for. And I got a little bit of on the thing about asking.
Okay.
But that's
You asked him for something.
Yeah, that's an anticipatory thing, though. Because
Okay.
I know he's going to yell at me.
Okay. Well, how intense is the anticipation right now?
It's small.
Okay.
Like a
All
1.
right. Then
Yeah.
let's
Yeah, it's
keep
right in
going
here.
and see what happens.
Right.
Okay.
And I must have asked him for money for something or to buy me something that I wanted. And I'm feeling a little bit, but it's only like a 1.
Okay.
And he yelled that I was bleeding him dry.
Okay. Are
Which
you intense
is-
about that?
yeah.
Yeah. How intense is that?
That's about a 5.
A 5.
Yeah, that's about a 5.
Okay. And is there an emotion that goes with that?
Yes. Sad.
Okay.
Yeah, sad.
Okay. Even though he said I'm bleeding him dry,
Even though he said I'm bleeding him dry.
and that makes me sad,
And that makes me sad.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I was bleeding him dry.
I was bleeding him dry.
He said I was bleeding him dry.
He said I was bleeding him dry.
It makes me sad.
Makes me sad.
I was bleeding him dry.
I was bleeding him dry.
That's what he said.
That's what he
He
said.
said I was bleeding him dry.
He said I was bleeding him
It
dry.
makes me sad.
Makes me sad.
He said I was bleeding him dry.
He said I was bleeding him dry.
Okay. So try to remember that moment again.
Okay, that's a lot lower now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that below a 1?
I think it is a 1.
What was it before? It was a
5.
5. Okay, so you
It
think
went
it's
way
a
down.
1.
Uh-huh.
Okay, is there something else left about what he said or how he said it? Or are you anticipating what else is
I
next?
think I'm just anticipating the next.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what's the next?
Okay. So then he said that I was a sponge.
Oh, you're a sponge. And how intense is that?
That's good.
That's high. Okay. Even though he said I was a sponge,
Even though he said
hang
I
with
was
me.
a sponge, yeah.
I deeply and completely accept
I
myself.
deeply and completely accept myself.
He said I was a sponge.
He said I was a sponge.
If you want me to just say it, I can. He said I was a sponge. He said I was a sponge. He said I was a sponge. That's what he said. He said I was a sponge. He said I was a sponge. That really upset me. That's really upsetting. He said I was a sponge. Can you say it with me now?
Yeah.
He said
He said I was a
He
sponge.
said I was a sponge.
He said I was a sponge.
I was 10 years old.
I was 10 years
He
old.
said I was a sponge.
He said I was a sponge.
And that really hurt.
And that really
That
hurt.
really hurt.
That really hurt.
Okay, finger points. That
Okay.
really hurt.
That really hurt.
He said I was a sponge.
He said I was a sponge.
Yeah, he said I was a sponge.
He said, I'm getting all confused. He said I was a
He
sponge.
said I was a sponge.
He said I was a
He
sponge.
said I was a sponge.
He said I was a sponge.
Okay, gamma point. Okay, close your eyes. Open your eyes. Hard down right, hard down left. You want a big circle. All the way around. Hum a tune.
Mm-hmm.
Count to 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, and hum a tune.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he said I was a sponge.
Oh,
Let's-
grab a cookie.
okay, yeah, good idea. All right. Now
Okay.
Let's take a breath and see how you are.
Yeah.
He said I was a sponge.
It's maybe like a 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was still there.
Okay. Even though he said I was a sponge,
Even though he said I was a sponge.
and I'm still upset about it,
And I'm still upset about
I
it.
deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay. He said I was a sponge.
He said I was a
And
sponge.
that really hurt.
And that really hurt.
He said I was a sponge.
He said I was a sponge.
And that really hurt.
And that really hurt. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
I can say it. He said I was a sponge.
He said I was a
Yeah.
sponge.
What he said.
what he
I'm
said.
upset about what he said.
I'm upset about what he said.
I'm upset about what he said.
I'm upset about what he
I'm
said.
upset about what he said.
Upset about what he said.
He said I was a sponge.
He said I was a
He
sponge.
said I was a sponge.
He said I was a sponge.
He said I was a
He
sponge.
said I was a sponge.
He said I was a
He
sponge.
said I was a sponge.
I needed something from him.
I needed something from
And he
him.
said I was a sponge.
And he said I was a
He
sponge.
said I was a
He
sponge.
said I was a sponge.
Okay, let's stop and check in with that now.
Okay.
Okay. He said I was a sponge.
It's smaller. It's like a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there
It's
something else about that that's coming up?
Well, I was thinking, I didn't mention originally that he was, I think he must have been hungover because it was like in the afternoon.
Uh-huh.
So that was also some of it too.
Okay. So hungover but not drunk?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. And what is it about that that's upsetting?
Because that's when he'd start yelling and saying stuff and yeah.
Okay.
When, I mean, anything about him having drank or drinking currently was, you know,
Yeah.
not good.
But was that more scary because he had alcohol involved? Was it more?
Yes. Yeah.
And why?
Because he
Was
would.
he more aggressive?
Yeah.
about
Oh yeah.
things?
He was like a Jekyll and he was a total Jekyll and Hyde.
Okay.
Completely.
Okay.
Yeah. He just would flip out.
So if we had some language to try to target that, could we say something like, even though he was drunk and that scared me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And do we want to add in, Andy said I was a sponge? Even though he was drunk and he said I was a sponge and that scared me. Would that cover it, do you think? Do you think that would target the right
Yeah.
thing?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. So even though he was drunk,
Even though he was drunk
and he said I was a sponge,
and he said I was a sponge
and I was afraid,
and I was afraid.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I was afraid. I
Okay.
didn't completely accept myself.
Okay, I was afraid.
I was afraid.
I was afraid.
I was afraid.
He was drunk,
He was drunk.
and I was afraid.
I was afraid.
He was drunk,
He was drunk.
and I was afraid.
I was afraid.
He was drunk,
He was drunk.
and I was afraid.
And I was afraid.
He said I was a sponge,
He said I was a sponge.
and I was afraid.
And I was afraid.
He was drunk,
He was drunk.
and I was afraid.
I was afraid.
He was drunk,
He was drunk.
and I was afraid.
I was afraid.
He said I was a sponge,
He said I was a sponge.
and I was afraid.
And I was afraid.
Okay. Let's check in on that now. And
Okay.
see.
Let's see.
Yeah, because we had I think a 3, and then it went up.
Yeah.
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 When we got to afraid.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But right now it seems smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm guessing that afraid is something that you may have felt
A lot.
a lot around him.
Yes.
When
a lot.
he was drunk.
A lot.
Right.
All the
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is connected to some
Yeah.
other things. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Just stay with me.
Okay.
Stay with me. Yeah. Just stay with me. I was afraid.
I was afraid.
He was drunk a lot.
He was drunk a lot.
I was afraid.
I was afraid.
He was drunk a lot.
He was drunk a lot.
I was afraid.
I was afraid.
He was drunk a lot.
He was drunk a lot.
I was afraid.
I was afraid.
He was drunk a lot.
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 He was drunk a
I
lot.
was afraid.
I was afraid.
Okay. Okay. Now what I was trying to do with that is just take a little bit of an edge off of something that's, probably more global.
Right.
More,
Okay.
more of a theme kind
Uh-huh.
of a thing. I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to be able to address the whole he was drunk a lot
Uh-huh.
with just a couple of rounds. That's
Okay.
going to take more specific events.
Okay.
But I was trying to chip away at it a little bit just to get some relief for this particular
Okay.
aspect of this event.
Okay.
So if there's a way for you to check into this particular occurrence
Okay.
of him saying
I can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
I can do that. Okay.
So he said you were a sponge.
Okay. Smaller, like 2.
Okay, so it's a less than 3.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is the 2 is the 2 maybe anticipatory of something else? Or is the 2 specific to being a sponge?
Well, no, I think it's about the sponge word. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's about
Okay,
that.
what does the sponge word mean about you? What did you say to yourself when he said that? That you don't deserve his help or something?
Yeah, that I'm just so not worthy of getting
Okay.
anything ever.
Okay. Even though I didn't feel worthy of his help, I'll say it.
Thank you.
Even though I didn't feel worthy of his help, I deeply and completely accept myself. Okay, I didn't feel worthy of his help. He called me a sponge, and I felt unworthy. He called me a sponge, and I felt unworthy. He called me a sponge, and I felt unworthy. He called me a sponge, and I felt unworthy. I felt unworthy of his help. I felt like I didn't deserve his help. Can you say with me now?
Yes.
Okay, I felt unworthy.
I felt unworthy.
I felt unworthy.
I felt unworthy.
He called me a sponge.
He called me a sponge.
In the living room that day.
In the living room that day.
And I felt unworthy.
I felt unworthy.
Okay, let's do finger points.
Okay.
He called me a sponge.
He called me a sponge.
And that meant something to me.
And that meant something to me.
It meant I was unworthy.
It meant I was unworthy.
That meant I was unworthy.
That meant I was unworthy.
Okay. Do the gamma point. Okay, close your eyes. Open your eyes. Right, left.
That's okay.
Okay, and then all the way around, and then hum a tune. Count to
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And hum a tune. Okay. Yeah. Clean up a little bit. It's hard to tell sometimes when you're ready to stop and check in, or whether I need to tap more.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Do you feel like you want to check in at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay, so he called you a sponge. And in that moment, you felt unworthy. I realize that may have happened more than once.
Yeah.
So we want to try to not draw other events into this. But so just for this particular event.
It seems a lot lower now.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels...
Is it less than the 2 that it was?
Yeah, I think it...
Well,
maybe
it was a 2 and then it exploded.
I know. That's my way. But right now, it feels like a 1.
Okay.
It's... Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think maybe we can move on to what's next
and
see if this, gets resolved with it, with time. Okay.
Okay. And then he yelled that I was nickel and diming him to death.
Okay. And how intense is that? That's a good one. Okay.
That's like an 8.
Okay. Even though he said I was nickel and diming him to death.
Even though he said I was nickel and diming him to death.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
Nickel and diming him.
Nickel and diming him.
I was nickel and diming him.
I was nickel and diming him.
To death.
To death.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
Nickel and diming him to death.
Nickel and diming him to death.
I was 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 nickel and diming him to death.
Okay, has that come down off of an 8?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's like a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and did that mean the same thing that the other thing meant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. So they're all connected. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, well then let's do another round on that one.
Okay.
Okay, even though he said I was nickel and diming him to death.
Even though he said I was nickel and diming him to death.
And that meant something to me.
And that meant something to me.
It meant something about me.
It meant something about me.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay. He said I was nickel and diming him.
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 And that's upsetting.
And that's upsetting.
That meant something about me.
That meant something about me.
Yeah, he said I was nickel and diming.
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 He said I was nickel and diming him.
He said I was nickel and diming him.
He said I was nickel and diming him.
He said I was nickel and diming
One
him.
more time through. He said I was nickel and diming him.
He said I was nickel and diming him.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
He said I was nickel and diming him.
He said I was nickel and diming him.
It upset me.
It upset me.
It said something about me.
It said something about me.
It hurt.
It hurt.
I was nickel and diming him.
I was nickel and diming him.
He said I was nickel and diming him.
He said I was nickel and diming him.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. It's lower.
Okay, so it was an 8, and then it was a 3.
Yeah,
and
now
then
it's
it was
like,
up again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But right now it feels like a 1. It's
okay.
lower.
How's the other one? He said you were a sponge. How was that one?
Oh, okay. That's really low now.
So is that below a 1?
I think so.
So okay, it was a 1, and then it just sort of that 1 sort of resolved itself.
I think so.
Maybe as we address this one.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. And so then what happened next in the story?
And then he said that let's see, let me remember how he worded it. He said that he wanted to die so that we could get the life insurance money.
We meaning the whole family or you guys?
No, that that so that we could have the money, the life insurance money.
Okay.
Because if he died, then we would get the money.
Okay. I'm trying to think of some simple language to put around. Are you laughing?
No, I mean, it's completely crazy. And as an aside, I now see more where I get my flair for the dramatic. Just had to say that. Because that was never evident until right now.
You are an actress and a dancer.
And I thought it was more mom. I thought it was more mom's other stuff. But
yeah, okay.
Dad had a flair.
That sounds to me like a bit of a cognitive shift.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, yeah, thank you.
If you don't mind, I've got...
Oh, please, please.
There we go.
Please, thank you, yeah.
Okay.
I'm all over the place.
Okay, so he said that he wanted to die.
Yeah.
So that you guys, so he just, that, because it sounds like an awfully dramatic thing to say. It doesn't sound like something he would have meant.
Right.
I want to die so you can have the money.
Right.
I mean, you're sponging off of me means to me that he wants to keep his money.
Right.
He doesn't want to die and give you the life insurance.
Oh, good point, actually. Yeah. I never thought about that.
That's a bit of a switch.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there intensity on I want to die and give you the life insurance money?
Well, yeah, the whole death thing. Like, he starts talking about death and money and...
Would you consider that like a threat? Like he threatened to die?
I'm trying to think.
Or he has to die so that you can have the money? Like a trade-off?
It almost seemed like a fault thing. Like if
I die,
it would be my fault, kind of.
Money.
Right? Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I could blame me for that kind of a thing.
Right. Okay. Well, I think maybe we should go for what it meant to you rather than what he said.
Okay.
So it was kind of like he was blaming you for wanting money.
Yeah. For like needing or wanting stuff.
Right. And okay. Even though he was blaming me. For needing a parent.
Right.
To have money.
Yeah.
To take care of me.
Yeah. To take care of me.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay.
He was blaming me.
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 For needing money.
For needing money.
For normal stuff.
For normal stuff.
He was blaming me.
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 For wanting a parent.
For wanting a parent.
He was blaming me.
He was wanting me, or
blaming
he was blaming me.
Yeah, he was blaming me.
He was blaming me.
He was blaming me for wanting a parent.
He was blaming me for wanting a parent.
He was blaming me.
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 He was blaming me for wanting a parent.
Blaming me for wanting a parent.
He was blaming me.
He was blaming me.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to that one. I know you were crying, so at some point we were pretty far up there.
Okay.
But how intense is that now? When he says, did he say I should die, or I'm going to die, or I want to die? I can imagine he would say, like, I should just die so you guys can have the insurance money.
Yeah,
and then you'll leave me you'll leave me alone.
Yeah.
Sorry, I almost cussed.
I think he said should instead of want. But
I should just die so then you guys can have your money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have said, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
Sorry.
No, that's...
Yeah, had to put a little reframe in there.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's a lot lower. It's very low. 1-ish, 2-ish, very low.
Okay, we had the sponge,
mm-hmm.
and then what was the next one?
Nickel and diming
nickel
him
and
to
diming.
death. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Was bleeding him dry, sponge, nickel and diming him to death, and then die for life insurance money.
Was that the last one?
Yes.
Okay.
That was his...
Let's look at some of what some of the other...
I actually think it's funny now, which I know is good.
Parts were. That's a good cognitive shift,
okay.
right? So bleeding him dry.
Yeah.
Go back to bleeding him dry and see if there's any intensity.
It's like a 1.
It's like a 1.
Yeah.
And then the sponge.
A little higher, like 1.5.
1.5, and then
nickel and diming
him.
1.5.
Okay, and then the insurance.
Yeah.
He's gonna die.
He should die so we can get the life insurance money. I think that one might be gone. That
Okay.
one feels really like.
Yeah, because it seemed a little ridiculous to you when you even first said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
way out there.
Okay, so the other three seem to be connected in some way. They seem to have the same message for you.
Okay.
Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're bleeding me dry, you're a sponge, you're nickel and diming me to death.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what do those things have in common for you?
Well, like I'm unworthy, like I'm too much to take care of, like I should never want or need or ask for anything.
Right. Okay, so that sounds like that bigger global issue
Yeah.
that keeps coming up.
Yes.
So for this particular event,
Okay.
can you see if we've released the intensity of the actual details of the event?
Yes. Okay.
So you can start
go
at the
through and-
beginning.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
why don't you start at the beginning
Okay.
and just tell the story? But what we're going to be looking for is, have we released the intensity? Is there any intensity on this particular event that
Okay.
we're working on?
Okay.
Rather than the other ones
The
that could be
big-
connected
okay.
to.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm little, like 8, 10, and I'm in the living room, and Dad is in the living room, and he's looking hungover and mad, and I asked him for something, I don't remember what, and he yelled that I was bleeding him dry.
Okay. Is there any intensity there just for that particular detail?
Little.
Would it be less than 1?
1.
It's a 1.
Yeah.
Is it for
It's still
that
a 1.
particular event?
Yeah.
Or do you think it's connected?
No, I think it's for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So bleeding him dry.
Mm-hmm.
A sponge.
Mm-hmm. Is there intensity on the sponge?
That's lower. now.
Lower than a 1?
Yes.
Could we call that a 0?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nickel and diming him to death.
Mm-hmm.
The word death has more of a
Okay.
charge to it,
Okay.
but it's still not very high.
Okay.
2-ish.
Okay.
And then that he should die so we could get the life insurance money,
Mm-hmm.
which is
That's a 0.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
just so absurd.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about the nickel and diming him to death.
Okay.
Nickel and diming him to death, is there some element of you feeling responsible
Yeah.
for his... Yeah.
Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
remember
Like, just because I
being
need
like,
money, my dad has to die or something?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
it was shocking. He was
Right.
good at being shocking, and
Yeah.
it was just shocking.
Did
Like,
he say things like that all the time?
No.
No, so this was just... Okay.
No.
Okay.
I mean, no. This
Okay.
was like,
So let's try to capture that in some language.
okay.
Even though I felt guilty for needing money, would that target what we're trying to
It
get?
feels like it's more of like a worth thing, like a
Mhm.
like a personal worth thing.
Mm-hmm. I was
Than a guilt.
remembering
I mean-
what you said about that he had to die for you to have money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that's where I got the guilt from. is
Oh, okay.
possibly
Oh,
that
right.
You have to die for him
But
to.
see, that doesn't seem so
Okay.
big like right now.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I did say that.
Okay. So it's more
It's
like
more like-
you can't have money because you're not worth it.
Yeah, like I must just be
Okay.
less than dirt.
Yeah, because that we're possibly going to head into something that's much more global.
Uh-huh.
By going into something like that.
Okay.
So we can do a couple rounds on that, and
Okay.
then we'll see if it brings those crescendos down.
Okay.
But if it doesn't, I'm going to suggest that maybe it's connected to that we're bringing other things in.
The broader. Okay.
Right.
Sure.
Okay. So what's the language that you think represents what's left? Even though I wasn't worthy of support from my parent, even though Dad felt I wasn't worth it.
Yeah, it's like just feeling
Okay.
really yeah.
Oh, sorry. We're tapping
Oh,
on
right.
ourselves. Okay.
Got it.
Even though
Even though
Dad felt
Dad felt
like I wasn't worthy of his attention
like I wasn't worthy of his attention
and support.
I
I deeply and completely accept myself.
deeply and completely accept myself.
Dad didn't feel like I was worthy.
Dad didn't feel like I was worthy.
He didn't feel like I was worthy.
He didn't feel like I was worthy.
Then I didn't feel like I was worthy.
Then I didn't feel like I was worthy.
He 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 didn't feel like I was worthy
He
of
didn't feel like-
support.
Like I was worthy of
Support.
support.
He didn't want to support me.
He didn't want to support me.
He didn't
That's
want
a good
to.
one.
Okay. He didn't want to support.
He didn't
me.
want to support me.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a little bit there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just adjust the language then.
Okay.
So he didn't want to support me. How
Yeah.
high is that?
2.5.
And is that connected to this event?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Even though he didn't want to support me.
Even though he didn't want to support me.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay. He yelled those things.
He yelled those
And
things.
he didn't want to support me.
He didn't want to support me.
He was yelling at me.
He was yelling at
And
me.
he didn't want to support me.
He didn't want to support me.
He was yelling at me.
He was yelling at
And he
me.
didn't want to support me.
Didn't want to support me.
He didn't want to support me.
Didn't want to support me.
He didn't want to support me.
He didn't want to support me.
Okay. You're going through those reminder phrases pretty matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about how then he'd like go and buy a car or something like. I mean, not when I was 10,
Yeah.
but just crazy. The messages weren't consistent, I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So,
Right.
but yeah, that didn't have a lot of juice there
Yeah.
the second
Okay.
time.
Does that mean that we've released the intensity from the rest of those, or that we didn't hit the target?
It feels like we've released it actually.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
we were right on it. So
Okay. All
yeah.
right. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So, do you want to close your eyes and go through a vivid visualization to try
Yes.
to test it out? Okay. Now
Okay.
you're going to do the movie theater thing where you're,
Okay.
watching it.
And I make it bigger and
Yeah, you're
brighter.
going to
Okay.
exaggerate the sights and the sounds and the colors and
Okay.
try to get yourself upset.
Again, it's right at the start where he gets even bigger
Uh-huh.
because he
Yeah.
was very tall.
Yeah, and we've seen that before
Yes.
because there's a lot of events connected to that.
Yes.
So, did you have any luck getting upset about the things that he yelled at you?
No.
Okay. Okay, well, I think that one is probably going to, be connected to some of the other things we do.
Okay.
So, do you feel like we've knocked this one off the list?
I think so, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.